Hope's choice isn't clear. Liam's survival changes everything. According to the spoilers for The Bold and the Beautiful, Hope Logan wants Carter Walton to know the truth. The eavesdropping session he experienced at Brooke Logan's palatial estate gave him the wrong impression that Hope intends to change. However, she is unaware of Liam Spencer's future. He may pass away later this year due to the brain mass that cannot be removed. If so, Carter will likely take Liam's place in Hope's heart as Clifton's character wants. However, Liam may be able to evade death by performing a soapy miracle. That outcome would please viewers by keeping a solid actor in the cast and presenting Hope with a dilemma she's unprepared for. All in the Family in Los Angeles. The above reference is tongue-in-cheek, referring to the groundbreaking sitcom that electrified audiences in the 1970s. However, it also makes mention of Hope's desire to rebuild her family with Liam. When Carter overheard Hope fervently expressing her desire for their family to spend as much time as possible together, he did not have any context for what she was saying. Carter's perspective will undoubtedly shift as a result of learning the specifics of Liam's diagnosis. He recently stated to Daphne Rose that although he has friends and a good job, he does not have a wife or family. Hope appeared to be the latest woman who could allow Carter's dreams to be realized, and that still might happen. Steffy Forrester Finnegan gives Liam Spencer a gift beyond beating this apparent terminal condition. All Liam wanted was for the two women he loved to make peace. It was, thankfully, made possible by Steffy Forrester Finnegan. It was smart to go to Hope and tell her about Liam's condition. Steffy, on the other hand, went beyond simply disclosing the sobering and shocking news. She asked Hope to return to Forrester Creations. The two women who bore Liam's children were moved to tears, realizing that their differences weren't a barrier to uniting to support the father of their children now. Hope's joy in having a path back to FC is absolute and instantly lifts the burden she's been carrying these past months. Then Liam Spencer continued to live the outcome Liam is still hoping for involves the mass on his brain being managed or dissolved. However, a significant medical advancement is required for that to occur. Alternately, a miracle may occur, rendering medical treatments or procedures ineffective. It's possible that Liam's seeming cancer could disappear. Beyond the soapy world, that climax is not. As a result, Hope will be there to support Liam and likely rekindle her relationship with Carter. However, Daphne Rose also desires a life with Carter, winking at the possibility that she will accomplish this and that Hope and Liam's family will reappear. This site is a leading source for everything linked to The Bold and the Beautiful. News and spoilers about B&B will be updated frequently. Los Angeles shimmered under the California sun, but inside Brooke Logan's sprawling estate, shadows loomed. As Hope Logan recalled Carter Walton's expression in her mind, his wide eyes, clenched jaw, and the weight of misunderstanding etched into every line of his face, she stood by the sitting room's large bay windows, her fingers skillfully tracing the edge of the curtain. He had heard only part of the story, and now he thought she was walking away. But how could she explain the impossible? She had no idea how to explain the unwavering pull of love, even in the face of grief and the warmth of another man. Hope's heart had always been muddled, torn between doing what felt right and what was right. Liam Spencer was the father of her daughter, her first love, her anchor in storms, no matter how many times those storms had been caused by him. On the other hand, Carter was the epitome of stability. Strong, principled, loyal, everything Hope had craved during Liam's worst betrayals. The lines between love and loyalty, on the other hand, began to blur once more as life cruelly twisted into yet another soap-stained tragedy. The diagnosis given by Liam had disrupted her daily routine. The words "inoperable brain mass" rang in her ears like a bell that never stopped tolling. She had gone numb when she first heard them from Steffy, her longtime rival turned unlikely confidant in the face of impending loss. She could still see the tears on Steffy's face, feel the tremble in her voice as she pleaded for Hope to come back, not just to Forrester Creations, but into Liam's world, into the space that still remained in his fragile life. Steffy's olive branch wasn't just about business. It dealt with Liam's legacy. It was about the children they shared and the man who might not see them grow up. And so, Hope did what she had always done, she stepped into the fire, into the ache of unfinished love, into the confusion that Carter could never fully understand. He had overheard the conversation she had with Liam, words of comfort, promises of time, whispers of family. But Carter had heard them without knowing Liam's condition. To him, it sounded like Hope was slipping back into old patterns, back into the gravitational orbit of the man who had broken her more than once. And Hope couldn't blame him for thinking that. Not entirely. At Spencer Publications, Liam stared out across the city skyline, his mind caught between past and present. He had made peace with the idea of dying, or at least, he had tried to. The doctors were clinical, direct, and void of the kind of optimism that could sustain a man like Liam, whose entire life had been defined by fighting for second chances. He had done so many things wrong. He had broken hearts, made mistakes he couldn't take back, and driven wedges where bridges should have been. But standing on the edge of mortality had a way of simplifying things. In the end, he wanted peace. And more than anything, he wanted his daughters to remember him as someone who had tried to do right by them, even when he had fallen short. Hope had surprised him. He had expected her to be angry, hurt, withdrawn. But instead, she had shown up. She had held his hand. She had promised him time. And for the first time in what felt like forever, he had seen the woman he had fallen in love with all those years ago in Aspen, soft, determined, quietly fierce. Yet the reality of his condition weighed on every moment. The headaches were getting worse. The moments of disorientation were coming more frequently. He didn't know how much time he had, and the thought of leaving without making things right was unbearable. So, he had told Steffi the truth, knowing it would eventually reach Hope. What he hadn't expected was Steffi's grace. She had embraced her role not just as his ex, but as someone who understood that peace was worth more than pride. In telling Hope everything, Steffi had done for him what he couldn't do for himself, given him one last chance to bring his fractured family together. Back at Forrester Creations, there was a tension in the air that only fashion and soap opera professionals could understand. Hope's return had sent ripples through the building. Ridge had welcomed her with open arms. Brooke had fought tears of pride. Thomas had remained silent, watching her with an unreadable gaze. The ache of betrayal was too strong for him to ignore. Not just because Hope had said things to Liam that she hadn't said to him, but because he had begun to believe in a future with her. For a moment, he had let himself imagine holidays, children, shared goals, things that had slipped through his fingers with Quinn, with Katie, with everyone else. Because something about Hope's demeanor didn't feel like betrayal. It felt like burden. Like heartbreak. Like carrying someone else's pain while attempting to maintain your own equilibrium. Still, Carter had been burned too many times to ignore the signs. So, when Daphne Rose, the confident and elegant new PR executive, made her interest known, Carter didn't shut the door. He didn't open it all the way either, but he didn't lock it. Daphne was kind. Smart. Grounded. Most importantly, she did not bring Hope's past with her. The days that followed unfolded like pages in a slow-burning tragedy. Liam's condition worsened, only to stabilize just enough to offer a cruel sliver of hope. One moment he was lucid and joking with Beth, the next, he was staring blankly at his phone, unsure of how it worked. Hope spent those days torn in two, one part of her holding Liam's hand at the hospital, the other part listening to Carter's silence like a thunderclap in an empty room. Every decision felt impossible. Stay with Liam and risk losing Carter? Choose Carter and regret not being by Liam's side in his final days? And what if Liam lived? What if, by some divine twist of fate, he beat the odds? However, this was Los Angeles, and the doctors were not optimistic. Stranger things had happened.